Now, I'm a big fan of Thor, and it brings me sort of great pleasure to say that Jason Aaron's current run on Thor, called Thor God of Thunder, is one of the strongest Thor tales and runs that I can say that I've read. It's a monthly series, it's still ongoing at the moment, up to about issue 15, and what I wanted to do was actually review Jason Aaron's first 2 story arcs, starting with this video, and this will be covering issues 1 to 5, which are collected as Gore the God Butcher, and also issue 6, which was a bit of a one-shot in-betweeny backstory issue for the character of Gore. So those are the issues we're going to be talking about in this video, and what I want to sort of say straight away is that if you're not reading this book yet, I'm going to go on record now and say you should be. It's really great. So here's issue 1. Now they are all written by Jason Aaron. This is the guy who's currently writing Wolverine and the X-Men, which is coming to an end very shortly. He wrote Scalped. He's written, I think, quite a few Wolverine stories, and also Punisher Max. He took over from Garth Ennis. Jason Aaron's sort of synonymous with a certain style, quite hard-edged and contemporary, quite gritty, and that's a certain style he brings to almost everything he writes, but he's also very comical and funny at times in his stories. So if you are a fan of Jason Aaron sort of going in, you're probably going to know what to expect with Thor. Now, I have to say, I've not read that much Jason Aaron stuff, but this is the strongest of that I have read. So here's issue 1. And as you can see, it says there, Thor, God of Thunder. It's actually illustrated by Esad Ribic. Now, I have to say, I hadn't seen any Esad Ribic art before reading this run, and I instantly fell in love with his artwork. It's absolutely gorgeous. But what I'll do, first of all, is just give you a quick idea of what the plot's about. Now, Jason Aaron, in an attempt to sort of make this take on Thor quite fresh, he actually has 3 different versions of Thor that crop up over the course of the story. Now, those are Thor in 893 AD, Viking times, a very young, sort of brash, cocky and naive, immature Thor. You have the Thor of present day, who is the Avenger, and you also have King Thor, who is from sort of thousands of years into the future, who is the King of Asgard. And Jason Aaron sort of jumps from each timeline and looks at those characters as they encounter the antagonist, who is Gore the God Butcher, who essentially is, throughout time and throughout Thor's life, you know, they encounter each other now and again, but Gore is essentially executing and butchering gods. He's a serial killer in the Marvel Universe, basically, and Thor sort of takes it upon himself to stop him. So that's the basic outline of the story. Now, just to give you an idea of the artwork in this, it is absolutely fantastic. I think one of the things that Esad Ribic does really well is facial expressions, as you can see there, and in doing so actually makes the different versions of Thor very sort of unique in their own way. They are the same character, but they all look different. I mean, they look, you know, similar in as much as they're the same character at different stages in his life, but through their facial expressions, Esad Ribic really manages to convey their sort of personalities. Each one has a very distinct personality. Now, this is the young Thor, as you can see here, who is always drawn almost like a high school jock, very cocky, very sure of himself, and also naive, basically. So issue 1 basically serves to set up the story. We see young Thor back in Viking times discover a dead body in a river, or a severed head rather, of a god, and wonders, you know, what can do this to a god. We have present day Thor, who is called, or hears a young girl's prayer on a distant planet, goes down to see her. She explains to him that, look, our gods don't answer our prayers anymore, but I knew you would come, God of Thunder, and he goes to investigate. You're like, where are your wayward gods? Goes to look for them and discovers them butchered, and then the issue closes with old King Thor on the throne of Asgard, sort of years and years and years into the future, having to do battle with Gore the God Butcher's black berserkers, one of which he leaves at every murder scene waiting for Thor, sort of guarding the scene sort of thing. If I can give you an idea of what old King Thor looks like, very much like Odin, with the one eye, but also has the arm of the Destroyer attached to him, which is infinitely cool. So that's issue 1, and basically the story continues through issues 2, 3 and 4, or this particular arc does rather, 2, 3, 4 and 5 actually, apologies. So there's issue 2, 3, that is 3, yeah, 4 and 5. Now this sort of mini arc, which lasts 5 issues, serves to set up Gore the God Butcher as an antagonist, as a character, and as a storyline. It's very much sort of Thor's pursuit of him at one point through the time stream, and it serves to show how he's encountered Gore at different stages in his life, and how his encounters with Gore actually sort of shaped him into the person that we sort of know and love as Thor the Avenger. Gore himself, who you can see on the cover of issue 6, I have to say they actually go some way into making Gore quite an interesting character. Now, issue 6 is actually a sort of one-shot. It's the origin of Gore the God Butcher, and I always think it's sort of tricky when you're doing origins to villains, because if you sort of reveal too much, you take away a certain amount of mystery, but they manage to sort of sidestep that potential pitfall. This issue's not drawn by Esad Ribic. I believe he was having a month off. It's drawn by, let's have a look, Butch Geis, I believe it's pronounced, although I could be mispronouncing that. Very nice artwork, I have to say. I mean, a little bit different to Esad Ribic's, but it is very nice. And it basically just serves to explain why Gore has such a hatred of gods. And to be honest, you look at this issue and you can sort of understand why he would be a little bit displeased with gods, but like I say, they managed to sort of round out the character of Gore and make him a three-dimensional character without sort of sacrificing the menace and threat that he brings in the first 5 issues, because it's established sort of very quickly in the first 5 issues that, you know, Gore is not somebody with whom you mess. He is almost an unstoppable foe. There is a shot from issue 2 that I really wanted to show off, which it basically sort of goes all horror movie to a certain extent, but Thor, young Thor, is going to do battle with certain gods who don't turn up, and then after waiting for a while, their sort of Pegasus turns up, drenched in blood, as you can see there. Now they've been butchered by Gore, so Thor jumps atop the Pegasus and goes to find out what's happening, as you can see there. And it's just a very sort of, the artwork throughout and the sort of set pieces are very cinematic, and I think that's something that applies to the whole overall arc, which, you know, continues into issues 7 to 11 inclusive. It feels very big, and what I do think that Jason Aaron does really well is that he manages to make a Thor story that's not so steeped in continuity that you can't jump on. It's a very streamlined and self-contained story. You have one cameo from another Avenger, you have Iron Man pop up for a few panels, but that's it. Other than that, it's just Thor. You don't even have sort of Thor's usual supporting characters. I think you see Volstagg at one point, but you don't have the usual, like, you know, the Warriors 3 and Sif and Odin and Frigga and whatnot. It's very sort of self-contained. Having said that, once you finish the overall arc, once you finish the second arc and get into issue 12, you can see that, you know, they're not ignoring what's gone before. But this arc of Gore the God Butcher, and then the second arc, which I'm going to review in the next video, God Bomb, do feel very self-contained, and I have to applaud Jason Aaron for that, because all too often you can read a Marvel story and it feels like just when it gets into the middle of it and gets gets good. You know, they have a crossover event and you have to detract from the story that's been told. But Jason Aaron manages to keep this fresh and brilliant. So the first arc that I've just talked about and the following issue, issue 6, I would definitely recommend picking up. I believe they're collected in trade already, called The God Butcher. I would highly recommend this first mini arc to give you a taster, because it is the best Thor story in years.